Wow, I'm late today. My goodness, I'm 12 minutes late. My sincere apologies. I was on a call that was very important and did not, frankly, want to get off despite knowing that I had this AI for financial advisors scheduled. As you know, for those of you who've been here before, my name is Dan Walkowitz. I'm also known as Entrepreneur Pro because I've been an entrepreneur for over 45 years. I am fascinated and have always been, even before my adult life. Boy, this flickering is definitely a problem I've got to resolve. I'm sorry. In my adult life and my youth, I was fascinated by finance, by investment finance, by corporate finance, and it continues to fascinate me. Thus, my focus on helping financial advisors enhance and strengthen their practices using AI. I have been involved aggressively with AI since the inception of ChatGPT. I've been using that and other platforms. These days, I prefer Claude. Seems to be more responsive to issues as I want them to be addressed. And every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, I hold a session of AI for financial advisors. I'll give you an example of something I'm probably going to do a special meeting on either tomorrow, Friday, or Monday, but it relates to an article that was published by a gentleman from LPL, and it talks about managed futures. And it talks about conceptually what that means and what the implications are given circumstances we're facing today. And that's invaluable information. But what I do is exemplified by what I did using that article as a foundation. I created a workflow, and a workflow consists of a handful of prompts, each giving more detailed or more expansive information than the last based on the results from the prompts that came before. So now, what I'm going to talk about Monday or tomorrow, probably Monday because Fridays are not really good at 4 p.m. Eastern for a variety of reasons, is how you can apply the concepts I addressed in that wonderful article to your practice, prompt by prompt by prompt. So we'll talk more about that in the context of how I do this, but it leads nicely into the fact that I have no clients. I manage no clients. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a successful entrepreneur who is engaged in the financial industry, family members. I know wholesalers. I know national accounts managers. I know financial advisors and love the world that you guys all live in and want to do what I can to help. So, in order to conduct these sessions, I created a notional portfolio. And let me share my screen with you, and you'll see what I mean, because what I needed to do was to emulate the portfolio that you guys all have under your management. So, to do that, I created, all using AI, random clients. There are 20 notional clients, each randomly produced and characteristics of each randomly generated. But once I generated the first batch of information, which was predominantly portfolio size, portfolio distribution, and the like, I needed more. So I continued to add more because of what I expect you would know about your clients, and because certain sets of prompts within a workflow need certain bodies of data. So here is my client portfolio profile set. So John Harper is the first person. He's age 58. Here's his portfolio and suitability area, characteristics. Here are his goals, values, and psychology, his dreams and aspirations, critically important to your ability to do a great job, his background and experience, communication, platforms. Where does John go to learn? Where do you want to be to make him aware of what you're doing? Certainly, LinkedIn is a place, a social media place where he hangs out, but he trusts, of course, Bloomberg, CNBC, his preferred learning, so on and so forth. His funnel relevant fields, basically, where is he in the world that you can relate to from the process of selling? And John is, if you go up here to his risk tolerance, it's moderate. He's 58 and he's anticipating retirement. But then we have Sarah, who's 32. Her risk tolerance is high. She's a digital nomad and all kinds of different characteristics about her. So, what I do with the workflows that I run is apply them to my notional portfolio. And what we do as an organization is apply the proper kinds of prompts to your client base, to your organization, to help you in very specific ways identify how you can enhance, strengthen, expand, sell your portfolio, your book, or buy one. All issues that are designed to facilitate more success for you, which typically comes from spending more time with prospects and clients, discussing the right topics. So, we are going today to talk about annuities. It's the third part of a four-part series that I've done having to do with free cash flow, free cash in your clients' portfolios from a variety of different sources, and how to identify that free cash, how to determine what to do with it, letters or emails to write to your client, custom to their circumstances, explaining what it is you've encountered and how you intend to move forward, because it implies the need for a conversation, probably with them, so they understand what's going on, whether it's annuities that have reached surrender, or a death benefit, or your child that you've saved money for college has now gotten a full ride scholarship, so that money needs to be redeployed. All of those issues are dealt with in four separate workflows, each with a handful of prompts, one of which we're going to talk about today. So, what I've learned in my doing of these meetings, and I've done probably 50, each with its own separate theme, what I've learned is that it's time consuming to type prompts into ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, whatever. And it's time consuming to wait sometimes for the responses. I've committed to not requiring more than 1/2 hour of your time, and I shoot for 20 minutes. Typically, I'm in the 20-minute to 25-minute range, but I realize that to optimize that time and provide you with the best value, what I've done is created a workflow with the prompts and the responses to those prompts from a run through ChatGPT in this case, run through my portfolio using those prompts. So the issue today is stopping the fee bleed on post-surrender annuities. The meter is running. So here's a discussion of issues you are undoubtedly aware of at some level, but an annuity past its surrender period that still carries management fees is not an investment strategy, is expense with no remaining justification, quietly billing your client month after month for protection that they no longer need. Most clients have no idea this is happening, and this is about how you as an advisor can address that issue. So in this particular set of prompts, we deal with the workflow as it applied to Robert Greene, a 70-year-old retired military officer with a $4.5 million portfolio who purchased a variable annuity 12 years ago following retirement. The surrender period ended 4 years ago. He has never been asked to review it. All four prompts are shown in full, each followed immediately by its response. So, when to use the flow, when an annuity is past its surrender period, still charging management for insurance features the client may no longer need. This is distinct from other workflows because the conversation leads with stopping a financial bleed, not pursuing an opportunity. So that's different than opportunities. Oftentimes, you're still accruing cash, but not aware of it. So the first part of this process, as it applies to Robert, and you could run this exact prompt on your entire portfolio. It would take a while, but it would do the same kind of analysis you see here for Robert for your entire portfolio with the same prompt modified a bit to say it's not about Robert, it's about these clients or my entire client set. So the prompt says, my client Robert holds a variable annuity with the following characteristics: current value 300. Now, it's important to know that you would have first done what we did in workflow 1 and or workflow 2, which is identify the free cash from each type of circumstance. And we have 10 different circumstances because they all need to be dealt with differently. So we would have identified the people whose needs exist, listed them, explained them. All that was discussed in workflows 1 and 2. So now we've identified Robert. He has a $340,000 annual expense ratio, so on and so forth, mortality, da, 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 da. So what we want to calculate, I need to make this a bit bigger. Yeah, what we need to calculate is the total annual fee bleed in dollars, the daily cost in dollars, the cumulative cost over the next 3 and 5 years, assuming current asset level, for what that same dollar amount would be worth if redirected into a low-cost bond fund at 4.5% assumed 4.5% assumed return, and a one-paragraph summary I can use when presenting this to Robert, writing him to inform not and writing to inform and concern, not to alarm or pressure. Okay, so you get that specific prompt is inserted into, in this case, ChatGPT, and the response that we got for Robert is, here's his fee bleed. Boy, my lips are not working. His fee bleed analysis. His annual expense ratio 0.85%. The dollar cost is almost $3,000 a year. Mortality and expense 1.25. Dollar cost 4,200 a year. His administrative fee 360 a year. Living benefit rider no longer needed. $3,000. Total annual fee bleed $10,000 a year, or almost $30 a day. Robert's living benefit rider was designed to provide guaranteed income, and so on. It gives you the context before it goes on with the remaining items requested. So, what is the cost of staying put in year 1, year 3, and year 5, based on that assumed value? The net after fee drag. So, there's a huge implication from doing nothing. If these same dollars were invested at 4.5%, the fee savings would be this: invested at 4.5% would yield 11,000 at the end of the year, 35,000 at the end of year 3, 62,000 at the end of year 5, and 421,000 versus 364,000 that he would have at the end of year 5. So the client-facing summary paragraph is there. Robert, as a part of my ongoing review of your accounts, I want to walk you through something I found that I think is worth your attention. The variable annuity you purchased about 12 years ago has been past its surrender period for 4 years now, which means the restrictions that once applied have expired, and now you have full flexibility, and it goes on to explain more. Now, you're in a tough situation if, in fact, this annuity is 4 years past surrender, but it helps you create a context and a paragraph that you would write that doesn't make you look like you haven't been paying attention, despite the fact that you would not have been, because most advisors don't pay that kind of attention, which is why we have the workflows we do to identify this on a routine basis, push a button, and it will do it for you. So that's the first prompt. Now, the second prompt is comparing the current annuity against alternatives. The prompt says, for my client, and it needn't have all of this information. In my case, my client profiles would be attached, and I would just have to reference Robert. But it assumes that we have not been able to do that. So here's the current situation. The alternatives to model: a 1035 exchange to a lower cost fixed indexed annuity, gradual withdrawal over 5 years, and reallocation to a short duration bond ladder, full surrender and redeployment into a low-cost managed bond portfolio. And it says for each alternative, show annual costs, projected 10-year value at 4.5% gross return, tax implications, liquidity, comparison, and income potential. Format as a simple comparison I can walk through with Robert visually. So one of the things that I find, and I hear from clients and others that are financial advisors and other business people, I know that there's a way to use these tools. I'm not gifted in how to do that. People pay me to work with them to help them identify alternatives to the way they're doing things using AI and to generate the prompts that associate best with what they're trying to achieve. These prompts, I will tell you, are created by AI. You can do it yourself, and I'll help you understand how to do it if that's what you want to do. But I'm certainly available to help you create the prompts. First, most importantly, identify where it could be helpful, and I'll refer you at the end to a page that shows the various topics we've discussed in the past 50 or 60 sessions of AI for financial advisors. So anyway, that's the prompt. So here's the side-by-side comparison: current annuity, annual fees, one option FIA exchange, 2 to 5 year withdrawal plus a bond ladder, option 3. So there are the fees. Here's the net effective return. Here's the 10-year projected value. Here's the 10-year advantage versus the current, pretty damn significant. Tax on the transaction, liquidity, and income potential. Complexity for Robert: nothing, low, moderate, moderate. Best fit if Robert wants that, zero disruption. Best fit if he values simplicity and tax deferral, and so on. And once again, here's the recommendation for Robert, which is option 2, which is likely the best given his low risk tolerance and his discomfort with large one-time decisions. That's prompt number 2. Prompt number 3: help me script the conversation I need to have with Robert about his post-surrender annuity. Once again, describes Robert. The conversation needs to open by referencing my ongoing review responsibility, not a sales motivation. So here it is. The opening: hey, Robert, as I do with all my clients' accounts on a regular basis, I've been doing a thorough review of your portfolio. I came across something in your annuity that I think's worth our time today, not because anything's wrong, but because something has changed, and I want to make sure we've looked at it together. This isn't about replacing anything or making a move. It's about making sure what you own is still doing the job you bought it to do. That's my responsibility to you, and I take it seriously. Can I walk you through what I found? And then here's what I found. Here are discovery questions. Is the original purpose still value? And it goes through those. Introducing alternatives as options, not recommendations. And then if Robert is receptive, do this. If Robert becomes defensive, do that. Creates the entire dialogue, the concept, the context, and the process for dealing with Robert, with whom you deal totally differently than you would someone else in a different circumstance. And it takes account of his specific needs or their specific needs, if other than Robert. It's unbelievably invaluable to saving you time and optimizing the trust and credibility you have with your clients and the fiduciary responsibility, of course, that you have. So prompt number 4 and the last one is document the review for compliance and client records. So I've completed a review. Here's a summary of what was discussed and decided. Here's what we presume was discussed and decided. Help me draft a client-facing summary letter confirming what was reviewed, what options were presented, and the agreed next step. Number 2, an internal case note in compliance-ready format. And 3, a 90-day calendar reminder with a specific trigger for follow-up. Ensure the language reflects that the client was presented with options and made an informed, voluntary decision regarding next steps. So here's the document, the client-facing summary and CYA letter. Dear Robert, thank you for your time today. As I promised, here's a brief summary of what we covered, what we reviewed, what we discussed. Here are the options presented, what you decided. Here's the next step. And as always, there's no obligation or timeline. My role is to make sure you have a complete and accurate picture, respectfully. Beautifully phrased. You can, of course, go in and modify it in any way, but it's perfectly aligned with Robert and how he does things and what we've discussed, of course. Here's the internal case note, the date of the meeting, the client name, the account reviewed, various elements of that. And here's a 90-day calendar reminder where 14 days from today, you're going to have a follow-up call with Robert regarding his options review, confirm he received the comparison document, ask if he's spoken with his accountant, ask if he has questions about option 2, do not press for a decision. Then 45 days from today, here's a secondary reminder, 90 days. If no action has been taken by this date, assess whether this moves into workflow 4, which deals with behavioral resistance, and we'll deal with that on Tuesday. Document all contact attempts and outcomes for compliance. Consider whether a graceful pause is appropriate or whether one final conversation is warranted. And then your fiduciary documentation note. This is, to my way of thinking, unbelievable. Unbelievable. I ran through my client portfolio, my notional client portfolio, and I found about $3.5 million in free cash. A lot of money to be sitting around and not capitalizing on. So your portfolio undoubtedly has more than 20 clients. Your portfolio is undoubtedly, typically from an industry average, incurring lots of free cash that you should be responsible for dealing with. You don't typically cover those things in your quarterly review. We can make that straightforward and simple for you through the whole process included in these 4 workflows, so you know who has the issue when they have it. So you're not writing 4 years later about an annuity that's reached surrender 4 years before. That makes you look a little, I don't even know what the right word is, unresponsive. But if you do it properly, where you're running this every 30 days, for example, identifying new issues, you catch them before they're a problem and address them before they're a problem, so you don't look foolish and look, instead of looking like you haven't been paying attention, like you're very responsive and on top of things, and it won't take hardly any of your time to do it. So I indicated to you earlier that there's a website. The website is in the crawler at the bottom of the page, bit.ly/AI_FOR_advisors, AI_4_advisors. Go there. If you're interested in providing your email information, we will gladly make sure that you get apprised each week of the topics to be discussed on each Tuesday and Thursday. And there are other opportunities in there. You get the software that does compliance reviews for you automatically, finds issues that are not compliant with SEC, FINRA, DOL if you're in Colorado, or your local regulatory agency. All of that information is available with the compliance review software with AI that we provide you, And we're even anxious to work with your organization. So as your compliance denies whatever doesn't get caught because of the regulatory review in our AI bot, then we will incorporate the denial issues into the bot so it becomes more and more informed about you and your organization. And ultimately, ideally, compliance won't take as much time to review your things because it knows that you're 99% sure of being compliant, including the issues that they've dictated as problems. If you're interested in talking further about how I can help your organization, go to dan@metagami.com in the corner of the screen, send me an email, tell me your interest. I'll be more than happy to call. We can have a conversation, no charge, no responsibility on your part, no expectations. I'm anxious to help you in any way I can. If I get paid to do it, it's because I'm providing value. If you want to do it yourself, happy to share the process so you're able to do that, knowing that I'm there to help if and as necessary. So, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so sorry that I was late. I managed to get this done within 26 minutes and a few seconds. I love this topic. Be sure to come back on Tuesday so we can talk about how you deal with each of the various areas where free cash could develop in terms of engagement. We talked here about engagement with Robert. Another circumstance, if there's a death benefit and the spouse has been widowed recently, a whole different method of dealing with that kind of free cash than in a situation where we're talking about an annuity. Those are the things we'll discuss on Tuesday. Once again, 4 o'clock Eastern time until no later than 4:30. Thank you again for joining. Those who are new, please come back. Those who have been with me before, thank you for returning. Look forward to seeing you on probably Monday so we can talk about this managed futures issue. But whether you come to that or not, see you on Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern time. This is Dan Walkowitz signing off for now.